Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It's Tuesday morning and look what's happened to the weather. Look at this. If you saw the two videos that I made yesterday, one in the early AM, like not long after sunrise, and it was nice and sunny and mild, and then I made one for Michelle Walks about Summer Wells later in the day, and it was nice, sunny and mild. And then at some point in the evening I looked out of my window and there was snow on the ground. Well, thankfully it didn't snow for very long, or else you'd have me complaining about snow. But it's very icy. This field here that is a complete mud bath normally is now a frozen tundra. So there's that. Anyway, that's my weather update for today. Let's get on with the video. And I want to talk about the Summer Wells case today. And if you saw my video on the Summer Wells case over on Michelle Walks yesterday, then you'll know exactly where I'm going to start with this video. There was a claim made by Ziggy on her live, so that'd be 2 nights ago now. And it was just an off-the-cuff comment that Fred Hill, you know Fred Hill who lives on Ben Hill Road, who's the grandson of Ben Hill, who gave his name to the road. He's Andy Bernard's cousin, once removed, very closely related to Andy Bernard. And Fred has been talking to Ziggy, talked to her several times. Ziggy believes him. Ziggy says that, you know, she believes he's telling the truth. So when Ziggy made this claim about something that Fred Hill had said, it was an alarming claim to make. So I talked about it on my video yesterday. I'm going to talk about some of the comments and kind of what I've done to try and make some sense out of that claim. Let's just be real. Let's just be real. There's a whole bunch of things that Fred Hill has said that were absolutely not true. That Fred would have known, surely, that they weren't true. You know, that Rose Bly was a prostitute who was living at the Wells, and the Wells were running a prostitution ring from the shed down there on Beach Creek, what Don calls the bottom property. Blatant lie. The deer bones that he showed Ziggy on his neighbour's property, that he, as a country boy grown up there, would have known that they were deer bones. Ziggy believed him. Ziggy called the cops. And she will defend Fred, you know, and fair enough. If she finds him credible and believable, that's fair enough, because some of what he says is believable. The shallow grave claim was believable, absolutely. And some of what Fred said, no doubtedly, is truthful also. But when you have someone who makes blatantly untrue claims that they must know are untrue, then how do you start to work out what is worth listening to and following up on and what isn't? And that's the Summer Wells case all over, since day one. Since day one, everybody connected to this child, to this case, has lied in some way, shape or form. They have. Ali changed her story. Dudley changed his story. Who knows what H was on about, but Summer falling in and him having to rescue her in the swimming hole wasn't true. Was not true. And the things that Jodie Sue has said, not true, but believable. Right? And yeah, there might be some truth in what she said. There might be some truth in what she said. But how do you know when she's made so many claims that aren't? We're in exactly the same position with Fred Hill. That Fred Hill said that he'd overheard the cops talking about a shallow grave that had been found. But when they investigated, you know, this hole that had some filling, there was nothing there. So how did they know it was a grave? Did a cadaver dog hit on it or what? How do we know that this just in a random hole? Anyway, Ziggy did talk about it on a live last night. Prayer garden. Yeah. Well, she said that it was Don that had put Fred Hill up to the Dearborns fiasco. That Don thought it was funny about the Dearborns fiasco. Who knows whether that's true or not? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? If Don knew about it and he was laughing about it, yeah, maybe that's true. I don't know, right? Cam from Cracking Cases has tried to find out the truth of that. Has asked Don about whether a shallow grave was found on Fields Road, and he said, no, that's not true. That is not true, and Fred will be laughing about it. Now, Don was spending a lot of time with Fred. It was Fred that he went to see the very night that Summer disappeared, when he went out looking, and he went to Fred's. As far as I know, that is true, that he went there. Whether Fred wore a wire to try and catch Don out, I don't know whether that's true. But I think we can put the shallow grave claim to bed and say it wasn't true. Surely Don, as Summer's dad, would have known that, law enforcement would have told them if a shallow grave had been found. Surely. I mean, look, in the Kylie Rodney case, do you remember, those of you who followed the Kylie Rodney case over the summer? They found a shallow grave at the campsite, at the place where that party was going on, and they dug up the bones of a dead dog. So they highlighted anomalies in the soil. They knew this looked like a burial site, so they opened up that grave, and it was a dog. They'd made the parents aware that this was going on. They didn't go public with it until after they'd found out that it was a dog, but they did in one of the press conferences. They went public about it. So I think if a shallow grave had been found that they had to investigate, I think at least they'd have informed the family. Even if the family were suspects, it's the kind of thing that they might tell a family if they are suspects. So I think we can put that in the nonsense bucket, and that was Fred Hill having a laugh, just like Fred Hill had been having a laugh about the Dearborns, about Rose Bly, about a bunch of other things that I've even forgotten about, because, well, I've got other things to think about than Fred Hill making up jokes that in bad taste, but just to wind the YouTubers up. And Diggy, maybe you're just being too gullible. If you feel Fred's truthful, then yeah, well, maybe there's a few things there that he said that are, but just be very careful. And I think we should just, take whatever Fred says with a grain of salt, unless it can be corroborated by other sources. So all of that is obviously just my opinion. But some people in the comments to that video said, this is old news. This is not new news. This is not breaking news. This is not shocking info. I've known about this for a long time. And have you really? Have you really? Because I'm pretty sure that I would have remembered if a story had come out about a shallow grave being found. And some people said Dave Rader talked about it. Well, can you find me the clip? Can you find me the interview and give me a timestamp of when he said that a shallow grave had been found? Because you all did me a favour, because it was a few people who said that Dave Rader had talked about it, and you think, well, okay, Dave Rader's the lead for Equisearch Midwest. So I did my due diligence. I spent 6 hours of my time yesterday watching every interview I could find with Dave Rader regarding the Summer Wells case, and I'd seen them all before, and I still don't remember Dave Rader talking about a shallow grave, and I couldn't find it. So he'd done two appearances on the channel Police Off the Cuff. And then he's been on Duty Ron's channel several times, probably like 6 times, 7 times even. I watched in full every single interview that YouTube would give me. And I'm glad that I can understand stuff when I put it on 1.5 speed, because it would have taken me considerably longer than 6 hours if I don't speed up YouTube. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find where Dave Rader talked about a shallow grave. Now, I think there was a rumour about a dead horse being found at one point during the case. Does anybody remember that? A dead horse. Now, is that the thing that people are conflating? Because some people said it was a dead animal. Some people said it was deer bones. Well, no, that's a different situation. That was Fred telling porkies in a different situation. So it's not the deer bones scenario. I think when people talked about a dead dog, they were thinking about the Kylie Rodney case. But the dead horse does ring a bell to me. I think we can put it to bed that there wasn't a shallow grave, that there's no evidence that Summer was buried on a property in Fields Road and she was moved, because that grave was empty. We've no evidence of it. But the people who sent me over to Dave Rader interviews, if you can find me the interview and the timestamp, because quite possibly I've missed an interview that I just didn't find. YouTube search didn't help me. Like, leave me the link or something, because I need to hear what Dave Rader said about it. But I did my due diligence, 6 hours worth of it, and I couldn't find it. But it did refresh my memory on some things that were said by members of EquiSearch and Duty Ron, ex-police detective, police off the cuff, also ex-police officers, detectives. It was interesting listening to that dialogue from well over a year ago now. I'd forgotten about the negativity that was said by people like Duty Ron, Dave Rader, and I really like those guys, right? I think EquiSearch do great work. They are a godsend to many, many, many families. So I certainly do not have any bad feeling towards EquiSearch. Duty Ron, I enjoy his channel. Police Off the Cuff, I enjoy their channel. But as ex-retired police officers, I think they are given perhaps more credibility than maybe I am, because I'm not an ex-police detective. I'm an ex-psychologist. I'm a trained psychologist, but I'm not a police detective. So when I talk about investigations and search dogs and stuff like that, maybe my information isn't considered as credible as that of Duty Ron or Police Off the Cuff or Chris from the interview room, which I don't know, I can't help you. I'm just saying, okay, that's your opinion. But listening to those early interviews, and Dave Rader saying that no way could he believe that Summer had been abducted off the property. It would be slim to none, 0% chance of a stranger abduction. There was a clash between Don and Dave Rader early on in the case, and then EquiSearch were there the day that Chris McDonough interviewed Candice at the swimming hole. And Robin was there, and Robin took a selfie with EquiSearch, but Candice didn't come over and talk to them. And I think, yes, that's weird. That's strange. But Candice is a funny old bird. I think we can all recognise that. I don't know, she's damaged. She's damaged. She's a damaged soul. And, this was a month after her daughter went missing. She was receiving a massive amount of negativity online. She was agreeing to Chris's interview because he promised to help them. And that didn't go so well. But, we weren't there yet. It was the day of that interview at the swimming hole. So very emotional day for Candice, like going back and remembering it all. And she wasn't in a great headspace. It's not an excuse. Not an excuse at all. Right? People accuse me of being a Wells supporter. I'm not. I'm Summer supporter. If I thought Candice was guilty, Don was guilty, I'd say so. There's many videos on this channel where I'm talking about Don, Candice as suspects, right? Because the police haven't cleared anybody, which is a shame. 19 months, right? It was 19 months that she's been gone. Like 2 days ago, it was the 19 months mark. And the police have got no leads that we know of. The police haven't given us an interview or a press conference in the last 7 months. The last update we had from TBI Hawkins County was on the year mark, so it's 7 months ago. Nothing, not a word from the detectives at Hawkins County, not a word from Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, not a word from the TBI, nothing. No updates. So, hopefully, they're still working on it. Hopefully, this isn't now a cold case. Hopefully, they're following up tips. But after 19 months, they've not been able to clear one person. They've not had one solid lead that that they've now got a dominant theory and they've got a good idea of what happened and they're chasing down the evidence to make an arrest. No, none of that. None of that. The public haven't been updated in the last 7 months. And with Don being quiet, he was in jail for, 10 months, 9 months, whatever it was. Went to jail in February, came out at the end of October. And it's only now, right, we're now in January, it's only now that he's starting to talk to people. We're hearing the rumblings of Don and Candice talking to people behind the scenes. And apparently Don wants money. He wants $10,000 to get an attorney to get the boys back. But he's not allowed back on YouTube. I don't know if they can stop him, but they're obviously working with the courts, doing parenting classes and stuff, and maybe they've said, you need to stay off YouTube. You need to not do your drunken rants on YouTube. And I agree. I don't want Don to come back to YouTube. I don't want Don to be in the situation he was in before he went to jail, where people were hanging on his every word, but not because they were supporting him, but because it was, the latest drama piece. What's Don going to say this time? I still chuckle, and maybe I shouldn't, I still chuckle about him drunk as a skunk he was, shouting at Candice. It was horrible at the time, but you've got to laugh about the way he was, I've got 7 alibis, you've got none. You're going down, my good buddy Starlink. How many memes was there about that? Don had no filter, and he didn't do himself any favours whatsoever. But at the same time, I think Don did raise a lot of awareness for Summer. He was the one who came to social media to try to raise awareness for Summer. I think Don has tried really hard to raise awareness for Summer. And I know I'm going to get accused of being a Wells supporter. I'm no one's supporter except Summer's. But after 19 months, nearly a year ago now, when the lead detective John Pruitt from Hawkins County did an interview with Ansley Daniel from WJHL and said, we've gone through cell data, tracking, GPS, and nothing. And you're going to say, yeah, but Don and Candice are criminal masterminds and they knew how to use burner phones and whatever. I can't change your mind on that. All I can say is, after 19 months, it would have been very easy for the cops, if they could have found anything at all against Don and Candice, to arrest them, to wrap this case up. It would have been very convenient for them. And they went back and back and back and back to that property. They searched that property high and low. They passed polygraphs, and I know polygraphs are not reliable as such, not admissible in court, but it's a tool. It's a tool that law enforcement uses, so, you've got to give it that. you know, regardless of what Sheriff Ronnie Lawson said, they didn't get an attorney. They didn't refuse to speak to the cops. Candice is a funny old bird, but I do think Don tried really hard in his own way. I do think he did. And of everybody in this case, perhaps it's Don that's told the truth. Perhaps it's Don who's told the most truth of everybody who's spoken in the Summer Wells case. Think on that. Think on that. I understand when people look at Don and Candice and say, well, they're shifty, they're guilty, this, that, the other. I saw everything that you see and saw, especially with Candice. But think on this, those early interviews with Dave Rader, who had beef with Candice and Don, and ex-police officers saying there were so many red flags, I think unfairly prejudiced this case. I really do, in the court of public opinion. And I did my bit in talking about Don as a suspect and Candice as a suspect and all the ways that they could have engineered a scenario. I did it all as well. But it was only when I started to review everything again when I did the Truth in the Hills series. That was months and months and months ago now. I thought, hold on a minute. Starting back at the beginning, I thought, hold on a minute. What if they're innocent? What if they are innocent? Who else could have taken Summer Wells? Or could Summer Wells just have wandered off and, you know, a little tiny body been missed in all of that dense brush out there on that mountain? Could she have been missed? Yes. Were there other people in Summer's life who could have taken her? Absolutely yes. Stranger coming up and stealing her from the basement? No. I'll agree with Dave Rader on that. But getting up on that property without being seen? Yeah, it's been done. Molly Golightly did it. And I know in a lot of cases it is the parents. A lot of cases that I covered on this channel, Harmony Montgomery, Serenity McKinney, not convicted but accused of murder, going through the courts. Cody Bigsby, Corey's dad's been in jail since the day Cody was reported missing. Child neglect, no murder charge or anything like that. There's a whole raft of children who have been done wrong by the families. So, yeah, rightly, law enforcement look at the parents or the caregivers very, very, very carefully. You know, there's little Athena Brownfield. That's a new case. Her caregiver, male caregiver's been charged with first-degree murder and child neglect. A female caregiver's been charged with 2 counts of child neglect. You know, it's a recovery mission now for Athena Brownfield. They're not expecting to find her alive. And it's so sad. But yet there are cases that you've got to look that are comparable to that of Summer Wells. I think the most comparable case is Athena Strand, the recent case. You know, she was allegedly murdered by the FedEx driver. Would anybody have imagined that? A FedEx driver just took her off the property. She was on her property, and it's a comparable property to that of Summer Wells, very rural. You know, hardly any visitors, acreage of that property, long driveway. But no FedEx driver took her and murdered her, has confessed to it. Michael Vaughan. Who would have thought that people within half a mile of Michael's house would have been accused of burying the body of Michael Vaughan in their backyard? And then law enforcement now believe that Michael was moved, that Michael is deceased, but he was moved. That's why claims like Summer was buried in a shallow grave and then moved seem believable. But I think, you know, yes, being abducted by a stranger is the minority of cases. But what if Summer Wells was one of that minority? What if, And I know that people who want to blame Candice, want to blame Don for other things that they've done, you know, the accusations against Don from Utah, set this case back. It's a different issue. It's parallel, but it's a different issue. That made people look at Don in a very negative way. Candice, her behaviour isn't conducive to getting on with her. She can be nasty. She can be abusive. She's an addict. And should she get her boys back? Well, that's for the courts to decide. But she doesn't help herself. Do I think she knows more about what happened on that afternoon of June 15th? Yeah, I do. I really do think she knows more than what she's said, than what she's told the cops, what she's told anybody. Yeah, I do. I think Don has been truthful. I don't think Don knows a thing other than what Candice has told him. But does it mean I think that Candice murders Summer or sold Summer? No. Never thought someone had been murdered by anybody in her family. Never thought that. But I did think for a long time that it's possible that this family have connections to sell a child, to get out of a debt. I did truly believe that. Go and watch my old videos. But do I believe now that happened? No, I don't. I think they would have been found out. I don't think they're criminal masterminds. I really don't think they would have been found out. But at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. And you're entitled to your opinion. And I'm not going to be able to change your mind. If you're absolutely set that Candice did it, that Summer drowned and it's been covered up. No, experts have come out and said Summer was alive and well in that milk jugs photo. She was alive and well in that milk jugs photo. The cops have got all of that cell data. They knew when that picture was taken. They've got surveillance from all over Kingsport. They've got evidence that Candice was where she said she was. But does that mean that she has absolutely no idea? No, I think she does know more. I think the behaviour panel were right when they said Don is innocent, but Candice, there's things that maybe she doesn't remember that happened. I think they're right. I do. I didn't at first. I thought, how could they be duped? Like 4 experts. How could they be duped by Don Wells? But I think after 19 months, we have to entertain the possibility that the parents are innocent and that something horrible happened to Summer Wells, but not at the hands of her parents, at the hands of someone else. And I think Candice does hold the key to, you know, a complete timeline. I think that's been Candice's downfall. But does that mean she did whatever happened to Summer? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So I think we have to entertain the possibility, in my opinion, that Summer was one of the minority. Sadly, like Michael Vaughan was, like Athena Strand was. We have to. For Summer. For the truth. So, yeah, this video won't be popular. It's probably lost me some subscribers. I'll be called a Wells supporter again. I don't care. I don't care what you call me. I support Summer and the truth. And whatever it takes to get to the truth, I'll follow. I'll follow the evidence, whatever that is. Alright guys, that's the video. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I've been Michelle. Hope you will. See you in the next video. Goodbye from Miss Tillington, who's been chewing a bone for the majority of this video. It's like a bit of a cow. I did look at it. There's a few pieces actually down by the little creek there. There's a few pieces and I did look at them just to check that they weren't human. They're not. They're cow bones. Because I know the difference between cow bones, deer bones, sheep bones and human bones. Fred Hill, take note. Bye guys.